During the Great Depression, the New Deal Works Projects Administration, WPA, used unemployed writers and researchers from the Federal Writers Project to interview and document the stories of surviving African Americans who have been part of the American slave system up until the 13th Amendment. Produced between 1936 and 1938, the narratives retell the experiences of more than 2,300 former slaves.
My name is Art Wallace. Many of the slaves went bareheaded and barefooted. Some wore rags round their heads and some wore bonnets. Master lived in the great house. He did not do any work but drank a lot of whiskey, went dressed up all the time, and had niggas to wash his feet and comb his hair. He made me scratch his head when he lay down so he could go to sleep. When he got to sleep, I would slip out. If he waked up when I started to leave, I would have to go back and scratch his head till he went to sleep again. Sometimes I had to fan the flies away from him while he slept. No prayer meetings was allowed, but we sometimes went to the white folks' church. They told us to obey our masters and be obedient at all times. When bad storms come, they let us rest, but they kept us in the field so long sometimes that the storm caught us before we could get to the cabins. Niggas watched the weather in slavery time, and the old ones was good at prophesying the weather.
Wow. Wow, you made that like come to life. Oh my goodness, wow.
Okay, now, something that stuck out to me, I had to go back and look, where he said he made me scratch his head. And I went back and I was like, aren't we talking about a guy?
Right.
Why was he having another man scratch his head?
Well, he might have been a young boy at that time. But again,
Okay.
that's the pathology.
Okay, then, a young boy at that time.
more-
Okay, because I had to look back
more
up. I'm
acceptable.
like,
Scratch his head and then walk away. Yeah.
yeah, okay. All
But
right.
it's also insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's insane. I just couldn't get past the fact that he had a man scratching his
Oh
head.
man, yeah, you're right. I was
Okay.
Why do you say it's insane, Art?
Do I have to explain?
We want to know. I do.
You have a grown man, the slave master, requiring another human being to sit at his bed while he's trying to fall asleep, and this other human being has to scratch his head. That's the definition of insanity to me. You know, and it goes along with not recognizing that it's kind of like us, I guess, flipping the switch to turn the fan on. You know, sometimes at night if it's a little warm, it's a little warm, let me flip the switch, turn the fan on. You know, and to think that he would view this other human being as
A tool to do that.
yeah, some tool to help him get to sleep.
It's like
And
relaxation.
And you know, we're used to hearing about, okay, slaves out in the field working, getting whipped and beat. You know, they try to run away and they get killed, or you know, and then we get to the lynching era later on. We're I don't want to say used to hearing that, but you know about that aspect of slavery. But then to hear something like this, the little trifles of slavery, where a young boy has to scratch the head of his master so he can go to sleep, that's just...
Yeah. It's almost, it reminds me of like someone calling for their kid to say, hey, come bring me the remote. And the remote is like 2 feet from them.
Right.
But on a much uglier level,
Yeah.
because when he said, and if he woke up, I had to go back and do it again. So it's, you know, yeah, it's like,
Fan the flies.
yeah, you're my property. Just do that until I fall asleep. You know, just
Never mind the fact that you need to go to sleep.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, no, he wouldn't take into consideration of him needing to go to sleep.
Exactly.
I was surprised that they took them to church with them. I thought that the slaves had their own church. I didn't know they took them.
They set up on the
with
top,
them.
that top thing up there. What is it? The risers.
Okay, I didn't know. I thought they had their own church.
I think it might have been different in different areas, you know, depending on who could really stand to be around the property. But yeah, that the other place for conditioning, that because they got a chance to hear it directly from the minister in the pulpit. Slaves, obey your masters. So, yeah.
But I said that because that's why I was told that holding up the finger comes from, because you're letting your master know I'm stepping out. So that's where that came from, because you would be recognized. I'm going out. I mean, that's what I've always been told.
Have you heard that before? I see it all the time in churches. Oh my goodness.
Y'all have never heard of that before?
No, but I can understand it now.
Okay, but that's why I've heard. That's why I've heard. That's where that comes from.
A church thing?
Yeah, you know, in a lot of churches, Baptist
walking in or
when they're holding up their hands. But that was from the slave era, where they would be in the back and they would let their get permission to go to the restroom or whatever is there.
Yeah. The things we do now, having no idea.
You don't know the basis and the knowledge behind it.
This is something good to bring about awareness. To understand why we do some things. Oh my goodness, if I see someone else tip out with their
that's
hand,
why I don't do it anymore.
Exactly
when I learned that, I was like, I'm going to the bathroom. I have to ask permission to go to the bathroom. But, yeah.
Wow.
All right, moving on to the next passage. My name is April Thomas. Martha had no children's by white women. He had his sweethearts among his slave women. I ain't no man for telling false stories. I tells the truth, and that is the truth. At that time, it was a hard job to find a master that didn't have women among his slaves. That was a general thing among the slave owners. One of the slave girls on a plantation near us went to her missus and told her about her master forcing her to let him have something to do with her, and her missus told her, well, go on, you belong to him. Okay. Yeah.
Comments?
So it was accepting by the wife of the master.
Well, I mean, she didn't have to do what she needed to do because someone else was doing it for her. Her role was just to be the wife.
Well, you said accepted.
Barely tolerated.
Yeah.
Who was
Seems
it?
like accepting to
Well,
Who was it barely tolerated by?
No.
the wife.
The white, she's talking about the white
Yeah,
woman,
I'm talking about the white woman, the wife of the master.
who knows that her husband
Right.
is creeping out to the slave quarters. Accepted, I don't think that's the word. What did you say? Barely
tolerated in some.
Forcefully tolerated because she had no voice to, as a woman at this time, to challenge your husband. You really weren't in a position to do that as a white woman. So what could she say?
Okay. And see, I saw the complete opposite. I was just like, well, let him do all that with her, and that way I could just sit here and, be the wife and take care of my house, as opposed to doing the dirt.
See, I don't think that though. I don't think that she was like, okay, I don't have to do that. You wanted to do that with your husband. Maybe not all of them, but most of them.
Yeah,
did.
I mean, it just depends on their.
Kinda,
Okay, I like what he said though.
yeah.
The fact that they don't really have a voice to say otherwise.
Well,
Wouldn't that be a great thing if they could say, no, you're not going out there to the slaves?
I think they probably said some things, but I mean, they probably didn't say too much about it. I think that they made it tough for the slave women that they knew that their masters found favor with.
Is it really favor? I don't consider that favor for you coming and sneak in my cabin.
Feel that the slave was favored. And even among the slaves, they, other slaves probably felt that the one that the master favored, I mean, that's kind of like favoritism.
Okay. Is that
because she probably got a little bit more.
Is that how they were considered the house niggers and things like that when they were put into the house? And, like the favorite one would be in the house to clean as opposed to out in the fields, and then you would create animosity there. Why is she in the house? Or then it comes to that skin color.
That's
the brighter
a skin
ones
color
are,
thing. Yeah.
Oh,
but
okay.
To me, from the movies I've seen or whatever, and that's all I know. Oftentimes, the ones that the master was involved with, they weren't like light-skinned blacks. These were chocolate sisters.
You're right.
And that's where the light-skinned blacks came.
I know, right? From the chocolate sisters.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay, right.
Well, that's it is what it is, you know. And it always amuses me when, and really at this point now, every African American has some mixture somewhere back down the line because of exactly what we were just reading about. And it's always funny to me when, you know, someone will ask me, like, well, are you mixed? And I don't want to say, fool, we all mixed.
Yeah, I know, right?
Who isn't mixed?
Right.
This is why. This is where it comes from.
That is, you're